When I was growing up in Colorado Springs, my mother remarried, and she married another man that I was 5 years old. When I was 6 months old, my biological father left our family. He left home. I never knew my biological father. I have one picture of him holding me when I was 6 months old. So from the time that picture was taken, I don't know the length of time between that picture and when he decided to leave our family. And we grew up, particularly because I was the youngest out of my mother's children. I'm one of four, so I'm the youngest child. He was not discussed. My mother refused to discuss him, and it was because she had not dealt with the pain and the hurt that happened between the two of them. But she did not allow us to speak of him at all. So I had so many questions, and I'm sure, like many of you who have possibly experienced the lack of your father in your life, you may not understand why he left. You may not understand why, or maybe it's your mother who left. But for me, I just didn't understand why he left. So when I was about 15 or 16 years old, I told my elder sister and my elder brothers that I had a desire to seek out my biological father. When I decided to tell my mother, she had a breakdown in front of us and she exploded in anger and in rage. I also grew up right on the same street as the KKK. You heard that right. We had the Ku Klux Klan on my street. Three families in particular that I know were Ku Klux Klan because they were proud and they were loud about it. So I grew up walking the streets of a town where we had to be home by a certain time before the street light turned on, as my mama would say. And if we weren't home by this time the street light was on, we got whipped, or as some people would call it, we got beat, because she wanted to make sure that we were safe. And so we had times where the neighbors that did not like our hue, our culture, our melanin, we had some neighbors that let us know very much so that they did not like us. They were very forthright. They were very honest with it. They were very abrupt with it. But then we had some of those sneaky neighbors, some of those covert neighbors who would smile in your face and say good morning in your face, but in secret, they hated your guts. How do I know that they hated our guts? Because I went to school with their children. Hello, my name is LETRA Davis. I am American living in the amazing country of Ghana on the continent of Africa. Believe it or not, there's still some people who don't know that Africa is a continent, and I'm in Ghana. And I just want to speak to you a little bit about my journey. I came to Ghana in August of 2021, and before that, I was on a very happy journey, but something shifted, and I'll be glad to share that with you. So I come from a state called Colorado, in the city of Colorado Springs, Colorado, and we are known for the Pikes Peak Mountains. We are known for Rocky Mountain High. We are known for the Denver Broncos. We are known for the spruce trees. We are known for the bald eagles. Colorado is known for many things. And I was a military child, a child that grew up with a ex-military or retired military father, and by the time I was born he's retired, and we lived just outside of Fort Carson, which is a military base there. And so I heard the military things happening on the side of my house all the time. We heard the artillery going off, we heard the bombs going off as they were testing, and so we just were growing up, you know, in a military town. So I was always surrounded by cultural things, multicultural people. We had people from the Philippines in my neighborhood. We had people from the Caribbean in my city. We had people from Jamaica in my city. We had all types of people. And of course, we had a lot of Caucasians. But I also grew up right on the same street as the KKK. You heard that right. We had the Ku Klux Klan on my street. Three families in particular that I know were Ku Klux Klan because they were proud and they were loud about it. So I grew up walking the streets of a town where we had to be home by a certain time before the street light turned on, as my mama would say. And if we weren't home by this time the street light was on, we got whipped, or as some people would call it, we got beat, because she wanted to make sure that we were safe. And so we had times where the neighbors that did not like our hue, our culture, our melanin, we had some neighbors that let us know very much so that they did not like us. They were very forthright. They were very honest with it. They were very abrupt with it. But then we had some of those sneaky neighbors, some of those covert neighbors who would smile in your face and say good morning in your face, but in secret they hated your guts. How do I know that they hated our guts? Because I went to school with their children. And their children, my friends, would tell me, you know, my mom and my dad, they ask you how they're doing, how you're doing, and they say good morning to you with a smile, but when we are at home, they really talk about your family really badly. So it was a weird dichotomy that I grew up in, because we played with kids that parents did not like us, and they were teaching their children not to like us. And what that did to me psychologically was put me in a place to semi-trust those people that I grew up with. And I'm a very naturally trusting type of person, but it caused me to have conflict because I wasn't sure whether my friends really liked me for me, or did they like me because of the novelty of me. And when I say novelty of me is, were they trying to see what their parents were saying were true or not? I'll never forget being in the 6th grade, and I was in the bathroom after recess, and one of the white little girls, Caucasian little girls, came up to me and rubbed my hair. And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I just wanted to see if what my mommy said was true about your hair." And I said, "Well, what does your mother say?" And she says, "My mommy says you put grease in your hair." And I said, "It's true, but you didn't have to rub my head. You could have simply asked me." So there were conversations being had about me in my neighborhood, but nobody took the time to truly get to know me, except for one friend who I'm friends with to this very day. And I love her to life. I love her to life. And so I knew that there was all of this different dynamics in my community. We had all of these cultures, right? Like I explained before, but then everybody was curious about one another, but they weren't curious enough to truly cross the barrier and talk and have dialogue. It was getting information or misinformation from their ill-informed, biased, or prejudiced parents or their grandparents. Okay, so here we are all these years later, growing up like that, growing up very different and unique, very out of the box type of thinker, not a conformer to any degree. I don't conform. I don't do status quo. I like to challenge the status quo. I like to buck up against the system. I am the one that's going upstream instead of downstream. So you put me in a situation where I'm like that. And then I am called to move to a beautiful place named Ghana. I did not know at first what country out of all of the countries in Africa I was going to move to, but Ghana stood far and beyond what my desires were, what my checklists were. And so here I am in a country that I believe is absolutely gorgeous, but I'm challenged again with being in an environment and in an atmosphere where sometimes people smile in your face, but you don't know if you can really trust them because they don't seem like they trust you. So you have this little girl that is in the midst of all of this multicultural, cross-cultural environment, trying to find herself. Okay, so I'm learning other people's cultures. I'm going to my friend Joe's house, who is Filipino, and I'm having menudo at his house. Menudo is a dish that is a Filipino dish. I'm going to my Cajun friends' houses, and I'm having certain foods from their German parents or their German grandparents. I'm going to my Dominican friends' houses, and I'm having their delicious cuisine. And of course, at my mother's house, who is a beautiful Texas woman who knows how to cook her butt off, right? And we're having all of these soul food dishes, these greens, these with ham hocks in it, and black-eyed peas, hoppin' johns, black-eyed peas and rice. And we're having all of these delicious dishes. And I'm learning all of these things, and I'm still trying to find who I am as a person, right? As I mentioned before, I'm very different. I recognize that I don't think the same as my friends. I recognize that I'm always questioning why something is the way it is. I don't just accept things the way they are, but I want to understand why it is, and is it still valid? Is it still viable for the now? Is it going to help for the future? And so many times I was the child in school that would raise my hand and my teacher would roll their eyes back because they wanted to know, why does this child always want to buck against what I'm teaching? Just get the lesson and move on like all the other kids. But it wasn't good enough for me. I had this insatiable desire to know what we can do different than what we've done in the past. And so that really shaped my desire to help other people understand that things didn't have to be the same all the time. Although sometimes you've heard the statement, if it's broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, sometimes innovation is necessary for the evolution or the movement of a people, of a culture, of a situation or a company. So I'm always thinking in the future, having my foot planted firmly in the present, never forgetting the past, but always thinking in the future. I guess that's why I'm such a huge Star Trek fan. Trekkie forever, live long and prosper. Ha! So anyhow, so yeah, that inquisitiveness about me, that explorer portion of me was not easily welcomed by others in my immediate surroundings. And so that made me feel insecure in a way. It made me feel odd. It made me feel strange. Coupled on that was that I also am a singer. I also am an actress. I love telling stories. I love the medium of music and storytelling, to engage people, to express things, to express emotions, to express problems, to offer solutions. So you have all of these things that are about myself that is outside of the box, that's not the norm, that is not the standard, and people that I am with don't get me, right? But I'm trying to be engaged with them, but it's hard for people to know how to engage with a person who's so different. So it set me on a journey of trying to learn how to express who I am with others, not explain, but to express. Because I never feel like you have to explain who you are. You are who you are by God, and who you are is enough. But it is helpful to be able to properly express who you are. And at the time, I did not have the words, I did not have the jargon, I did not have the understanding of how to express who I was. And so I went on a self-discovery journey of many years to be able to express who I was, not to excuse who I was, again, not to explain who I was, but to properly and to effectively express who I am. And that's why I have a desire to help people. I love helping people to express who they are, whether that is in their dream, their vision, their goals, what they want to achieve, whether that's in their business, in their family life, their romantic life, or just self-knowledge. To have the understanding of oneself is such a liberating, exhilarating experience. I cannot tell you. We're here in a beautiful setting right here in the Botanical Gardens here in Abiri, Ghana, and science has done wonders in helping people understand why. When we look at a plant that's green, we know that there's a green in a plant for certain reasons. Science helps us understand that. When we study weather, we understand because of science the why certain clouds bring certain molecules of water into a space, and then when those molecules accumulate, then at certain times it falls. We understand through science that there's thunder and there's lightning and the barriers of sound. So science has greatly helped us. But when it comes to us knowing how to express who we are, the science at some points were not there, but now the science is there. And so I help people understand themselves scientifically. I am not a licensed therapist. I am not a licensed counselor. I do not hold a science degree, but I have, through cognitive study, that is CONATIVE, cognitive study, I have been able to gather information about why a person is the way they are, whether they love to be adventurous and spontaneous, whether they like to study and deep dive into information and gather a bunch of data, or whether they like to work with their hands. Maybe there are people who love to work with their hands. They don't necessarily have to read a manual. They don't have to necessarily read a pamphlet to know how to assemble and to fix certain things. They just have an instinctive way of doing it. Or there's another type of person who likes to understand patterns and how to group things and how to organize things. So I studied this through a system called the Kolbe system, and that is KOLBE. And through that, a woman named Kathy Kolbe was able to study the parts of the mind that show us how we are able to do things instinctively, how we innately and naturally go about solving things and achieving things. It is simply what we will and what we will not do faced with any type of circumstance. It's not about our skill level. It's not about our education. It's not about our experience. It's not about how we feel about anything. It's simply our innate, natural, instinctive way about going about certain things that can help us know how we're going to do things, how to go about it and do it successfully with less stress. So I love helping people do that. I do it for people all around the world. I enjoy helping people find how to express how they are, why they are, and help them apply it to their everyday lives, whether that's in home, whether that's in the corporate setting, at an organization, whether you are an entry-level employee or whether you are an executive, whether you operate a large Fortune 500 company or if you're a small entrepreneur of a small business or a mid-sized business, or whether you are in a relationship and your love, your boo, you don't get why when you take vacations, they wait to the last minute to pack. They just wait to the last minute to do everything. When you're the type of person perhaps that likes to do things 5 months in advance, you like to have things done in a proper order, but you clash with your partner because they do it differently and you think they're doing it wrong. But I would challenge you to recognize and acknowledge they're not doing it wrong. They're doing it according to how they are innately talented and gifted. It works well for them. For you, you need more time to study the vacation, to get things organized. That's how you process it. That's how you deal with it. That's how you are most productive. Their productivity comes in a whole different way. It's very different. It's very contrast. But if you know that about them, then you all can work together in tangent with one another. If you are a CEO of a company and you're hiring for 5 positions in your company and you want a certain type of group of people to work with, you have candidates who are applying, right? They're submitting their CVs or their resumes, and on paper they might have the education, they may have the experience, but when you hire them, you find that they're totally wrong for the job. Why is that? It's because you have not studied whether they are cognitively the right person for the job. Again, not to be confused with cognitive. I'm not referring to cognitive, I am referring to cognitive. Conative. So you can study a person's background, their history, their skill set, their education, and all of that might seem stellar. But if you don't also study their cognitive to see how they'll go about doing a certain job to make sure that the thing that their tasks are being done in the most productive, successful way, you are doing yourself and your company a huge disservice. That's why you have a lot of jobs that are a lot of high turnovers. And turnovers are expensive because it costs a lot of money to hire people. You invest money in hiring people. And when you have a lot of turnovers, when you have to when you have to fire people over and over and over again, it causes you to have to spend more money, right? Who has time? Who has the finances to do that? We don't. So we want to make sure that we're hiring the right people for the right jobs, and I can do that. I'd love to share a story with you right now, very personal and very transparent. So when I was growing up in Colorado Springs, my mother remarried, and she married another man that I was 5 years old. When I was 6 months old, my biological father left our family. He left home. I never knew my biological father. I have one picture of him holding me when I was 6 months old. So from the time that picture was taken, I don't know the length of time between that picture and when he decided to leave our family. And we grew up, particularly because I was the youngest out of my mother's children. I'm one of 4, so I'm the youngest child. He was not discussed. My mother refused to discuss him, and it was because she had not dealt with the pain and the hurt that happened between the two of them. But she did not allow us to speak of him at all. So I had so many questions, and I'm sure like many of you who have possibly experienced the lack of your father in your life, you may not understand why he left. You may not understand why, or maybe it's your mother who left. But for me, I just didn't understand why he left. So when I was about 15 or 16 years old, I told my elder sister and my elder brothers that I had a desire to seek out my biological father. When I decided to tell my mother, she had a breakdown in front of us, and she exploded in anger and in rage. My mother was so angry that I wanted to find out who I was from that side of my family. She just couldn't handle it. And it affected me so horribly and negatively that I didn't do it. So the next time I remembered that I wanted to reach out to my biological father, he actually reached out to me. And that's when my mother died when I was 19 years old. He found my phone number, so apparently he could have gotten a hold of me for all those years, but didn't. Whether my mom prevented him from contacting us or if he chose to not contact us, I do not know. But on that day, my phone rang. I had married at this time. I was married at the age of 18. So my phone rang, and when I picked it up, he says, "Hello, Letra, this is your father." And I froze. I was in shock. And at the time, my husband looked and he said, "So what's the matter? What's wrong?" And I said, "This man is telling me he's my father." So he proceeded to say that he heard of my mother's passing and he wanted to offer his condolences. He further explained to me that he wanted to offer his regret and his apologies for leaving our family, and that he had no excuse, that he was sorry, and from moving forward, he wanted to have a relationship. I took him at his word and had the funeral for my mother. About 3 weeks after her funeral, I decided to call his number, at which time I discovered that his phone number had been disconnected and unlisted, which crushed my heart because obviously he did not mean what he told me 3 weeks prior. Obviously, he lied to me, or he just backed out, he chickened out and was a coward. I don't know his story, but I had to forgive him. I had to forgive the man who was responsible for my life. I had to forgive the man who allowed me not to know him or his family, his parents, his siblings, or if he had other children. For a long time, I did not know if he had other children that I possibly could be related to. So the loneliness that caused, even though my mother remarried and I had a stepfather, I still always had a longing to know the man that was my biological father. And that affected me greatly in many aspects of my life because I always felt with new relationships. I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now. I always felt that new relationships would dissipate, that they wouldn't last long. And I now know because I interpreted what happened to my family with my biological father. I interpreted that in all of my other relationships, in all of them. It was even the reason why I got married. It was I did not get married because I was solely in love with my husband at the time, because I was in love with my husband at the time. But I now know that I was reaching out for a father figure, and a husband is never meant to replace or be a substitute for a father. But again, I did not have the understanding because I had not done the work of self-discovery within myself to understand all of those dynamics that were at play at that time. So when I tried to call my biological father and the phone number had been unlisted, my biological brother went to go visit him in the state that he was living in. And that was it. Nothing ever happened. There was no reunion with my biological father. I never saw his face. And I found out that he died through some other family members on my mother's side. I found out that he died some years later. So the closure that I desired, the resolution that I wanted, the explanations that I wanted, the gaps that were there that I had hoped to be filled, the void was never accomplished in him. But I had to look through my higher power, God, to fill all of those voids. I had to look to my God to deal with all of those gaps. I had to look to my God to deal with my abandonment issues that came through my biological father. And so I had to release my, at that time, husband from the responsibility that he was never supposed to fill. I had to release him from filling in those gaps that my father left, because a husband is supposed to be a husband. A husband is not supposed to be a husband slash father, okay? So I'm speaking to those that may be dealing with this. You're trying to put pressure on your husband to fill a void that your father did, a mistake or a grievance that your father put upon you. Your husband is not meant to fulfill. Take the pressure off of your husband. That's not his job. That's not his task. That's not his responsibility. He can help you in the process. Your husband can help you in the process of your healing. If you have a circumstance similar to mine, your husband can help you in the process of being healed, but your husband is not your healer. So I just want to make sure that you ladies are clear on that. For you gentlemen who may have abandonment issues because of your mother's abandoning you, please know that a woman relationship, a romantic relationship, is never meant to fill the void of your mother. So release that woman, release that girlfriend, release that wife from trying to fill that void, because she can't fill it. She can't help you there. But you can look to the Lord if you are a believer in Christ. If you're not a believer in Christ, your spirituality comes in a different way. You do you, but I'm just explaining what it is for me. So, having understood all of that about how I sabotaged new relationships, I had to bring all of that to a close and resolution. And I had to close that chapter and recognize that it is finished, it's over, it's done. And I could stand firm in who I am. I am not the mistake of my mother and my father. I am not the problems that they have. The who I am is not their mistakes. Who I am is who I am. And I stand firm in that, and I stand strong in that, and I stand joyous in that. And I help other people find their path in those ways also. We talk about love all the time. Oh, I love that movie. Oh, I love that restaurant. Oh, I love that celebrity. But do we really understand what love is? Do we truly understand what love is? Love is patient, love is kind, love is forgiving, love is long suffering. Love does not hold sins and grievances and wrongdoings. Love frees, love gives, right? But a lot of people are lacking understanding loving themselves. And I'm here to let you know that loving yourself is the greatest gift you can give to yourself. And I want to ask you, do you know that you're deserving of love? Do you know that you need to love and to be loved? But do you also know that you need to love yourself? Many people are willing to love other people if they understand what love is, but they have a problem with self-love. Self-love is necessary, because if you don't love yourself, you will dry up and you will wither and you will then eventually die. Self-love is required because it is the essence of being able to express and exude love to anyone else. If you can't love yourself, you cannot love other people properly. Loving yourself is not selfishness. Loving yourself is not narcissistic. Loving yourself is not self-serving. It is life. Loving yourself is living. Loving yourself is being able to know that you are special, that you are unique, that you are here on this earth on purpose, that you have a meaning, and that you deserve to be treated well. Yes, deserve. Deserve is not the same as entitlement, because there's a lot of entitled people. I'm not referring to being entitled. Entitled means that you demand it from other people. Deserving means you give it to yourself. And when you respect yourself to give yourself love, then you attract other people to love and to respect you. You see, an entitled person says, I'm going to make you love me. I'm going to make you respect me. I'm going to make you do me right. But no, 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 no. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about the recognition that because you exist, you are designed to love yourself. You are designed to be loved. And loving yourself opens up the gateways for you to be loved and to be respected and to be treated well, because you treat yourself well. So love yourself. I love me. I love you. I want you to love yourself too, and I want you to love others. I want to take a moment to discuss something that ties into, segues into the next part of what I want to say. You know, when you love yourself, it gives you the freedom to explore that thing that you did when you were a child, you know, to imagine, to dream, to envision, to wonder and wander, right? We think, oh, when I'm a grown up, I want to be this, I want to do this, I want to this and that and the other. And then life happens, circumstances happen, people happen, and we get off kilter, we get off course, or we're told, no, you can't do this, you're going to do this. You know, whether that's a parent that is strong and strict and they enforce you to do certain things, or other people in your life tell you you can't do what you want to do because you have to make a living, you have to do this. But I want to challenge you in seeing the wonder and the awesomeness of doing you, right? Not doing you like we say it flippantly, oh honey, I'm gonna do you, I'm gonna do me, you do you. Not in that way. I'm talking about doing you the way you were meant to be, the person that you want to be, the life you want to have. You know, again, sometimes things happen that are unexpected. Many times the unexpected in life happens. But I want to share with you a story. I was with a client who loves to take his camera, a hobby, and take his camera and just take it and just film around and just mess around, right? Well, comes to find out, he wanted to do that for real, in real life, has always wanted to do it. But people told him, you can't do that. You can't make a good living in that. You won't be good at that. What we do, we self-sabotage ourselves to allow people to speak negatively into our lives. We allow people to live through us. What is the word? They use living vicariously. We let people live their lives through us instead of living our lives. Why do we do that? Why do we accept other people? Why do we allow people to subject us to what they want us to do? Why do we do it? Again, I say it to us. It's because we don't love ourselves enough to say, I love myself to do what I want to do. Sometimes you have to work a job you don't necessarily like. Sometimes you may have to go to a school you didn't necessarily want to go to because you may not have had the fees or the tuition to go to another type of school, although I do help people with scholarships, so see me about that. Have you ever considered why you are having an increase in headaches? Have you ever considered why your head is so hard, so stressed, frustrated, upset, stomach problems, mental struggles, no peace? It's because you are possibly continuing to move according to how other people want you to live instead of living authentically to who you are and to moving in a direction of a life that you believe you want. But you continue to go the opposite direction. And it's causing emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical problems. I'll give you a prime example. One of my beautiful, wonderful clients came to me because he felt sick all the time. All the time he was feeling sick. And he explained to me that he was in an organization and all of these people had these high expectations of him to perform this duty in this organization that he didn't even want to do anymore. He had done it. He enjoyed it for the season that he needed to do it, but he felt that the time had came for him to stop, move on, move forward to something totally, totally different. And he said, I want to, but I hate disappointing these people. And I looked him in his eyes and I said, are you willing to continue to satisfy these people's expectations of you and continue to get sick, sicker, and sickest in your life? Or are you willing to disappoint them momentarily and get your life on track with where you want to go and do what you want to do and be happy. He said, I'm willing to disappoint them momentarily and temporarily. And he started. He didn't drop them cold. He didn't stop straight away, but he started weaning them little by little, small, small, and having them find other people to do his task. And he started slowly moving into things that he enjoyed doing, which was music, which was things in the creative space. And he just released a CD last year, and I'm so, so proud of him. And he's so, so happy. He wasn't happy before. He was just spinning the wheels. He was on that hamster wheel, just turning and then turning and turning to appease people. Do you know if you continue to live your life to appease people and to satisfy people at the expense of sacrificing yourself, you'll end up dead? I'm not mincing words here. You will end up dead. It will be a slow death for some. It'll be a quick death for others. I am not trying to scare anybody, but I know what I'm talking about. My own mother, lived a vibrant life, but she was under such pressures from every part of her life. She had to be a single mother before remarrying, to raise children by herself and to hold it all together. Many of you women, you're holding it all together by yourself and you're smiling on the outside, but on the inside, you are so sad. You are so hurt. You are crying every night. Tears are rolling down your face. You don't know how things are going to work for the next day. You don't know how you're going to feed your children. You don't know how you're going to be able to put clothes on their back, shelter over their heads. Some of us, I'm just going to be honest with you, some of you are doing things with men and making money sleeping with men. Oh, I talk very straight. I don't hold back because I know that there are women out there hurting and they're sleeping with men to get money so that they can have food in their cupboards, that they can have food in their children's mouths. You need a phone, or you need transportation, so you'll sleep with a man, so he'll give you money. He might be a married man, he may not be a married man, but you don't see that there's any other way out. My sister, there's ways out here that you can make money for yourself without having to sleep with a man and lay down with a man. You are worth more than that. Love yourself, respect yourself more. I'm telling you, you are worthy of more. Because that man, all he's wanting is what's in between your legs. Now, I don't know. This might be a little bit too much for the audience. I don't know if I'm going too hard, if I'm going too deep. This might be a little bit too tough. But you are worth more, young woman. You are worth more, young lady, than just being laid down on your back, letting any man have his way with you anyhow. But he doesn't care about you. It's fast money, but your heart is leaking, your heart is aching, your heart is paining because you don't see another way out. You might need tuition for your school and you can only think of a way and a man is willing to sleep with you and have sex with you. You're worth more. There's more ways to achieve it. Just because I'm from America, just because things look good in America, it was hard for my mother to raise 4 children by herself until she got remarried. We had to live in poor housing. We had to live in poor flats. She had to stretch the food. We had to have government food assistance. So I understand it's hard, but I'm telling you, she was able to start her own business and come out of that situation and become a very successful businesswoman and a successful person in the community. People looked up to my mother. So you can do it. You're not going to stay in this low place your whole life. You're not going to stay in this down place your whole life. So ladies, if you don't know that you're worth more, you will let 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 10, 9, 12, 13, 20 men sleep with you for money. But you're worth more. You're worth more. Love yourself more. And you might ask, well, Where am I going to get the money from? If I don't know, I don't know. It's hard. Yes, it's hard. I understand. But love yourself to the point where you don't think of yourself in more than that. Think of yourself higher than that. You don't have to do that, my sweet. You don't have to do that, my love. And for the men who would take advantage of women in that position, sir, I say shame on you. Shame on you, sir, to sleep with a young girl when you know that she needs money. Why don't you be good, a good-hearted man, and say, I know that you need help. I'll give you some money, nothing attached. I don't want to sleep with you. Why don't you do that? Be a good-hearted man. Don't give her something and say, okay, lay down, lift up your dress, drop your trousers. No, be a good man. And I am not gender biased. There's some women who will give men money so that man can have tuition for his, because she wants him to have a good, you understand what I'm talking about. You understand. So loving ourselves allows us to rise above the loneliness of life, the lowliness of life. When we love ourselves, it rises the internal expectations of what we will accept and what we will reject regarding us. Aha. And we'll start attracting other people to us to say, I want good for you. I see that you respect yourself, so therefore I'm going to respect you. We won't tolerate people. When we love ourselves, we won't tolerate people disrespecting us, dishonoring us. When we love ourselves, we will carry ourselves in such a way where we will put ourselves on the journey of living a life that we enjoy, having a life that is filled with happiness. Yes, when we love ourselves, that's why it's important to know that you are worthy and you are deserving of love. But it starts on the inside first, and then other people can say, this person, they're not going to put up with nonsense from me because I see that they love themselves. So you have come to a realization that you want to do something different in your life, but you don't know how to go about it. Maybe you're surrounded by people who don't support you, that they're not cheering for you, that they're not encouraging you. Sometimes you have to be the person to encourage yourself. Sometimes you have to be the person to support yourself. And you say, I am done with this current life. I'm going to move into another life. But you're stuck. Some of you don't move because you're paralyzed with fear. Fear is a killer. Fear will stop you, it will block you from moving forward. So you're going to have to work on not being afraid to the point of not doing anything. I'm not going to lie to you. Moving to Ghana, I was afraid in a lot of ways because I didn't know anybody here. I didn't know anybody here. I didn't have any type of relatives here. I didn't have friends here. I had Ghanaian friends that lived in America, but I didn't have any Ghanaian friends who lived here who could say, come, stay with us. No, I had to recognize that I was the person that had to, even when family members told me, Letra, you don't have what's your plan? I said, the plan is to move to Ghana. Well, what is your plan? I had to recognize that their concern for me and their love for me, although expressed in sometimes a harsh way, couldn't stop me from doing what I needed to do for my next move of life. So when you are in a situation when you have people not necessarily supporting you, you're going to have to take a deaf ear to their negativity. I'm not saying take a deaf ear to wisdom, but if negativity is coming your way, you're going to have to block it out of your hearing, in your physical hearing, but more so on the internal, your spiritual hearing. And you're going to have to move forward despite their negative statements, despite their non-supportive gestures towards you. And yeah, it's hard to pull away from what you know. Another type of fear is the movement of from what you know versus the unknown. When you are not moving forward because it's more comfortable, even though you're not happy, even though you're miserable in the stuff that you know, but you're not sure about what you don't know, move anyway. Because the discovery of learning what you can do when you're moving outside of your comfort zone, that's empowering. You're like, oh my God, I didn't know that I could do this. I didn't know that I could do that. I didn't know that I could stand on my own outside of what I've been doing for this many, a long time, a long term, for all these years. So let the opportunities of growing and expanding and having opportunities to do new things, let that be a catalyst for you to move from where you are to going to where you want to be. And then I think thirdly, I would like to share that another reason why a lot of people don't move and they stay stuck, stagnant, and stale is because they don't believe in themselves. You must believe in yourself and move forward. You know, birds, when they're first born, the mother will push the babies out of the nest, and the babies will, they'll flop their wings. And sometimes they have to go. They have to do what they were born to do. So I would encourage you, when you are stuck in your mind, to say, I don't know if I can do it. You might not do it the first time. You might not do it the second time, but keep going, because you will succeed. You will achieve it. You will be successful. You will produce. You will have fruit. You will have harvest. I'm so passionate about this because I've seen it over and over and over with my clients, that they didn't think that they could achieve something, but all they needed to do was have belief in themselves and have someone to say, I believe in you, and move. Do you think all the successful people in the world started out successful the first time? No. All of the things that we have, the cars that we drive, the airplanes that we see in the air, all of the things that are the computers that we use, whether that's a Mac or a PC, all of those people who created those things did not succeed the first time. They failed a few times. You know, in Ghana, I've seen KFCs here, all KFCs everywhere, KFCs. And I'm like, how did he get KFCs in Ghana? I don't understand. Do you know that that guy failed hundreds of times when he was trying to sell his chicken in Kentucky? He failed. People was like, oh no, we don't want your chicken. He said, okay. He went and asked another person and another person. He had so many no's, but all it took was one yes for him to start that trajectory of success. So I don't care how many times you're told no. All you need is on the yes on the inside. That's all you need. No matter how many times you're rejected by others, if you have a yes on your inside, it doesn't matter how many other times people say no to you. You're saying yes to yourself, and that's all you need. So for those of you who have had a hard life, for those of you who have been beat down on the right, on the left, from the front, from the back, on the top, pressure, crushing, you've been hurt, you've been abused, you've been misused, you've been toiled with, I understand, I hear you, I get it. You feel hopeless, you feel lifeless, you feel numb, you feel like, what's the use? What's the use in trying anymore? I had my shot, I didn't do it, I didn't take it. My time of trying is over. I'm just gonna live out the rest of my days the way it is. There's no use of me even trying anymore. I want to say to you, try again. I want to say to you, breathe again. I want to say to you, feel again. I want to say to you that there is hope, to have faith, because your life means something important. I want to encourage you that just because life has beaten you down doesn't mean that it's going to continue to beat you down. You can rise above it. You can come out of the circumstance. I know for myself, I'm a witness. I know I've lived it. I help other people do it. I'm always available to you for you to seek out understanding, to listen, to learn your story because I'm passionate about people's stories because I know how to maneuver and to adjust and to help strategize and plan. I've had meetings with women and men here in Ghana, in Japan, in America, in the UK. I meet with people in person and virtually, and they tell me their stories and they tell me where they want to be. They tell me their issues, they tell me their challenges, they tell me their struggles, and we move from there to a pliable plan, a viable plan, and a strategy to move small, step by step, milestone by milestone, until they see themselves moving in a manner that's more smooth, right? Because an engine without oil is going to be cranky, clack, 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 clack. But when it's got that oil, it starts to move faster and it's smoother. So I'm here to help all of the components and the mechanics of it to come together. And I enjoy people. People are my passion. I'm passionate about people. So that's what I have to offer. Thank you so very much for listening to my story. I hope it's helped so many. Blessings.